So I'll talk a little bit more about searun cutthroat since they are, the season for them is starting now. These fish, they don't tend to be shy. When you find them, you know you're in them. I wish that I could tell you that the fishing here on Whidbey Island for searun cutthroat was as good as it is on Hood Canal, but I just can't say that. There's just so much more, so many more jump across creeks in Hood Canal. There's hundreds of maybe thousands of them, I don't know. And searun cutthroat, because they're that nonconformist trout, they don't need a lot of water to spawn in. And so they'll even spawn in non-perennial streams if the conditions are right. So they can slip up a tiny little trickle like this, spawn, and come back out into the salt. And so most of the areas that you'll find in Hood Canal for cutthroat are points of land, moving water, estuarian type environments. And it literally goes from Discovery Bay, as you're driving out of Port Town in the 101, Discovery Bay, to all the way down to Shelton. And you're going to find just droves of them. And I have great news in that their numbers seem to be just either stable or getting better every year. I guide a lot there. And every day that I go out, when it's good, we usually stick a fish of 22 to 23 inches now. And we used to not see that, when I was younger. I don't know, maybe it's because I'm fishing more, but there's big fish out there. And when you get a 23-inch cutthroat, you're like, holy crap, that's a big fish. It looks like a salmon, And they're just wonderful. Gina has caught the biggest searun cutthroat to date that I've ever seen boated. It was 24.5 inches measured.
I now make him take tape measure, by the way, the little sewing tape measure stuff, and we measure because he is a fisherman, and he does it's 38. Oh, looks like 36.
And because I'm a cabinet maker by trade, you'd think I'd be better at guesstimating the size, but it's with fish, they always look bigger than they are. Yeah, exactly. I'm a fisherman. But we do measure some of these just for research purposes, even just to see how old is a 24-inch cutthroat? That's either a very old fish or a fish that is very competitive and has been out competing his friends for food. And you'll see that happen. You'll see little cutthroat in a big pack of them chasing your fly, dart out and grab your fly before, so that one's going to get bigger quicker. They have attitudes, and they're just gorgeous fish. And you can look forward to dry fly fishing for them in the fall. You can look forward to tying really wonderful and creative patterns for them because they're not picky. So you can tie your new inventive flies that look awesome in the water, and a cutthroat's going to eat them, and then you feel all great about yourself. You're like, I invented the new latest greatest fly, and then it doesn't work later, and you're like, oh, okay, well, I need to do something else. But cutthroat are fun like that. They're not picky when you find them. And I encourage everybody to get out in Hood Canal and do it. But for now, we're talking about our own backyard and what we've got to offer here for this summer. And it looks to be that we're going to have great searun cutthroat fishing this summer, as it always is, but it looks that the Coho are going to be up in numbers, which is really good. The reports are coming back that it's totally different than the last 3 years, which I'm crossing my fingers because last year was really heartbreaking. It was just sad to see, and I think we've seen maybe what hopefully is the tail end of that 2015 warm blob. Yeah. Where in 2015 I had days where I hooked 90 Coho in one day, and and everybody was like, all the restoration, all the work that we're doing, it's all working, and then it just went in the hole. 2016 they canceled, 2017 restrictions, 2018 more restrictions, no fish came back, and so now they're saying good numbers. Things are looking up, so I'm stoked, and that's the last thing that I want to talk about is Coho fishing. It's a, yeah.
What did you hear about pink salmon?
I'm hearing that there's not going to be very many.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
Yeah. Pink salmon, unfortunately, have a susceptibility to sea lice, which is caused by salmon rearing pens, and it killed them all in Canada. A lot of them in Canada. I mean, they're you know, so if the farmed Atlantic salmon, for some reason, they create a sea lice on them that when it's attached to a native or a wild pink salmon, it kills them. And so that's what's happened up in Telegraph Cove. There used to be millions of them, and the orcas were you know, specialized pink salmon eaters up there, so they're all really struggling too. So yeah, but
is the sea lice playing itself out, or is it still?
I don't know. I'm not a marine biologist, and I'm not, you know, I don't work for NOAA, but like I'd love to know more about it. You know. Yeah.
Question: you don't speak much of the west side of it. Yeah.
That's what I'm going to now. Yeah. You're gonna be hard pressed to find a searun cutthroat on the west side of Whidbey Island, unless it's in front of Max Welton. But I don't even want to get into that long, sad story about Max Welton Creek. I can talk to you guys about it if you want. My opinion as to what happened. That used to be my favorite searun cutthroat fishery on Whidbey Island, and I would catch them all the time there in front of Max Welton Creek. And what happened is that they forever, so they diked it there. So they created, they have a culvert there so that it didn't allow salt water to come in and flood their farmland. So the Dutch were farming there, and so they did that a lot on these areas of Whidbey Island. They put dams, culverts, whatever you call them, and it made it so that the fish couldn't pass through, and specifically bigger fish like coho. But that culvert allowed searun cutthroat through, and it did forever. And what the farmers would do is they would dredge that channel, and you know the channel that I'm talking about. It runs that whole last length of Max Welton Road before you come up to the beach. That whole channel used to be dredged, and they would keep it free of debris, and those fish were able to come in and use that as a thoroughfare to access these actual spawnable creeks like the upper Max Welton Creek and Quaddy Creek and so on and so forth. And the beavers came in, and there was some like hemming and hawing about what to do with the beavers, and then they said you're not allowed to trap the beavers anymore. And you know, and which if in an ideal world, beavers are great for a stream habitat, but because of the way that things had been set up, the beavers actually choked out that thoroughfare for those cutthroat, and they all died. They're no longer in Max Welton Creek, as far as I know. And the guys that are doing fish counts there for the little baby smolt that they plant in there, they used to find cutthroat all the time in their fish counts. Now they don't find them at all. And you know, but you know, that's not to be, you know, that they might come back. You know, they definitely might come back, and especially to know that they spawn in non-natal streams, they might come back if we come to an agreement with everybody and the resources, like our primary, you know, target to like help out, not our egos or whatever, you know. So anyway, the west side of the island is like primarily a coho fishery, and it's historically been one of the best in the world. And we've seen declines in that, but you know, we still have great opportunities at coho, pink salmon, and even king salmon from on a fly. And we've, you know, every year, when it used to be good, every year I would hook king salmon on swinging flies early in the morning for coho at Bush Point, right at the White Rock. You know, we had one about 25 pounds that we landed like 7 years ago, and that was just a great treat. So looking forward to projected numbers being up for coho and everybody getting out on the beach and swinging flies on good tides at Bush Point and the state park. I don't believe that their staircase is back in operation, but the bluff's not that difficult to navigate, to get down and to have the beach all to yourself on a good morning tide and get away from the yahoos casting buzz bombs at Bush Point. You know, because there are just so many of them, and they're throwing stuff in. You know, but yeah, like all those kelp beds and all the way up the island, like Evie's Landing and north of there, all those kelp beds are great rearing grounds for juvenile bait fish and different stuff. in some years, we've seen packs of coho come into those kelp beds and hang out for weeks at a time and just absolutely gorge. And you know, if you can access those and fish those different beaches and the right time, you're definitely gonna catch coho. And to be blessed with a 12-pound bright coho on a fly rod is just wonderful. So that's all I have to say about coho fishing, because I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't want to get too dark about it, because it's dark times for salmon.
What do you think is the best tide?
Best tide?
Yeah.
Well, so cutthroat and salmon, bull trout and salmon, they're very different feeders. So cutthroat and bull trout feed on moving water. They literally will feed on a whole sort of flowing tide. Like say the high tide is at 8 in the morning and you've got 4 hours of prime moving water. That's going to be your best chance. You're 8 until 11 or 12 o'clock in the morning. And it also depends on how much light. And if it's high at 3:30 in the morning and it's light at 4, you better be on the water at 3:30 in the morning if you want to have good fishing. Don't wait until the tide's more reasonable for your sleeping habits to go and go at 8 o'clock in the morning when it's already been light for 4 hours. Those fish are going to crush food all morning long. But salmon are totally different. They'll feed literally on a tide change. So if the tide change is at 5 in the morning, I'm on the water fishing at 4. You've got an hour, and then you've got about a half an hour, 45 minutes of the tide change, and then you have another hour. And that's sort of historically your window for sticking a coho or a pink salmon. That's all of a sudden they're around, you see them, and all of a sudden tide change happens, and bam, they eat your fly. It's like that, and no one knows why. I don't know. Certainly don't know why.
Air pressure.
Air pressure. There you go. Yeah. Well, something's going on down there that it triggers them to feed.
But it shuts off just as fast.
It sure does.
Yeah.
And so, guide days for me, for example, are very trying and long because I usually fish 2 tides. That gives my client the best possible chance to catch a coho salmon is to hit that first tide in the morning, basically futz around and joke all day, and then get another window before I have to call
That's
it.
why we call you. So when it shuts down, then we go to you.
Yeah.
That's your job.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Exactly. It shuts down, and then I'm just like, hey, let's go exploring. Let's take a boat ride. Oh, look at that sea lion over there. Isn't he cool? Aren't the mountains beautiful today? And then all of a sudden, oh, it's go time. Let's go. Get your fly in the water. And by that time, people are so tired. Last September, it was really slow on the west side, and I kept telling guys, I have a really good story for you, by the way, if you want to hear it. It's really, really funny. This guy, I kept telling guys, you really have to be focused on your fly at all times, especially right now, in the morning. Be focused on your fly, because that fish will eat it at the back of the boat, and you're on la la land. And I had a lot of clients miss that eat while I'm watching the fly, and I'm like, set! And they're like, what? Set where? And the fish had eaten their fly and spit it out, and that was that. That was our fish, And so anyway, I had this guy from Texas call me, and he wanted to go fish for 2 days. He flew all the way in from Texas, and he was the funniest dude. He had a great sense of humor. He was a little bit of an odd duck, and he gets a taxi to the Freeland hotel here in Freeland, and he goes, can you pick me up in the morning at 4 o'clock in the morning? And I said, yeah, sure, that's no problem. So I drive to his hotel, I pick him up, we go out fishing for the day, and we have a great time, but he won't stop talking about bass fishing. Literally non-stop, faster than I'm talking now, non-stop for 9 hours. Just bass this, bass that, bass this, and oh boy, and he hooked a 12-pound bright wild fish, and it's screaming out line, and he turns to me and he's like, about that bass that I was telling you about. And I said, Ken, you need to focus now. I don't want to lose that fish, buddy. That's a big fish. You need to focus, be quiet. So he shut up for about 10 minutes, landed that fish, and then went right on talking about bass. So the story gets even better. So that night at 11 o'clock, I'm fully asleep. he calls me, and I get up and I say, yeah, and he goes, oh, hey, Colin, this is Ken Prehotich, Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. He always announced himself that way every time he called me. And he goes, you mind calling me at 3:30 in the morning, because I don't trust this hotel alarm clock. And I'm like, sure, Ken. So I call him at 3:30 in the morning, no answer, goes straight to voicemail. I'm like, oh God, he's asleep. He's, so I drive to the hotel, lights are off. I'm like, it's 4 in the morning. I go up and knock on it. Light comes on. He comes to the door in his underwear and he goes, oh God, I slept in, didn't I? And I was like, yeah, buddy, it's go time. Let's go. So he gets all of his stuff and we get in the boat and we go down there. And by this time, it's cutting it close for the tide change. And I launch the boat. There's another guy behind me. You know how it is down at Bush Point. You got to be, going. He goes, hey, Colin, since I slept through my alarm, I didn't have my morning movement, so if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to go hit the outhouse real quick. And I'm like, sure, Ken. So I go out and I wait for him, and he's in there smoking cigarettes. I see smoke coming out of the chimney. He's in there for 25 minutes, not exaggerating. He comes back out, and I was like, well, you're paying me, but you missed the tide completely, dude. That's a great story. It's my favorite from last year. He's a wonderful guy, though. We had a great time, and he did get the biggest fish of the year. That goofball got the biggest fish of the whole Coho season, and he didn't even know what he had. He's like looking at him, and he's like, "This doesn't look like a bass." That's my presentation. I should wrap it up for you guys. But any more questions, I'd be happy to answer.
No, you're gonna come back and do a fly tying thing?
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, we just wanted to show the can't miss flies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can't miss flies.
Don't bring her. Don't bring her.
I'll be nice.
What do you know about that Glendale?
What do I know about it?
Yeah, Glendale Creek, does it produce?
It's another one of those stories where, when I was younger, I used to crush down there, and then, I don't know, beavers were introduced. Something happened with the beavers. There was the big dam blowout, and it washed a lot of the reds away, and they're still there, but they don't seem to be down there in numbers like they used to. Even 5 years ago, I went down there and had a 20 fish morning on nice big cutthroat, but you just don't see them down there anymore,
Yeah.
And
They say chum salmon come up there, right?
yeah. So, historically, Glendale and that kind of shoreline, up, below the Swanson farm, and then all the way out to Possession. This time of year and earlier, it would just be loaded with chum fry. Just chum babies everywhere. Little needles darting around in the water, and the cutthroat would literally drift and follow them all the way down on the tide. And you could walk the beach or drive the boat and just stay on the chum fry and just be catching them all day. And now I haven't seen chum fry like that down there for 5 years. And we consistently go and look for it, So I don't know what the story is there.
What about the fry from Langley Dock? What's that? You see fry, off Langley Dock.
Yeah, I caught a couple really nice cutthroat right in that harbor.
Yeah.
And we were down there for wedding photos was that 2 summers ago? 2 summers ago? We're sitting there taking wedding photos, and this 20-inch cutthroat jumps out of the water maybe 6 feet from the shore.
Wow.
And I taking wedding photos. I'm like, hold on a second, what the heck was that? It's a big cutthroat. So they come in there, and Gina's biggest fish came from that kind of shoreline along there. At the right time of year, if you find them, you're gonna be happy you found them. But they're so hit and miss. It's like they're very migratory, these fish, these S River fish. They move around a lot, they're in deeper water a lot. They don't hang out in the same haunts like the Hood Canal cutthroat do. Hood Canal cutties are that's my home, that's where I stay behind that rock.
That's not so much.
What?
I disagree with that.
Oh, well maybe you have...
I've fished there for years, and I'm plant up here. Shame on you. But no, I've had mornings, and it's just kind of a question. There's areas on the South Sound that outgoing only catch fish, and incoming only catches fish. But they're always migratory. And I've gone and caught like 16 fish one morning. Next morning, same time, same everything.
They're gone.
You've got an hour and a
True,
half of
true,
casting practice.
True, yeah.
Is that the way it is on
Well, so when I say migratory, I mean these fish here are moving huge distances. Like to cross the Skagit River, you know, from where the Skagit River is, all the way to the east side of Whidbey Island, and then they're so far dispersed. Like those fish in Hood Canal, I totally agree with you. I've had so many fish, so many days where I've caught multiple fish in one good morning, gone back the next day, they're gone. But they are maybe down the bay a quarter of a mile, or they're out in deeper water or something. And they have done studies, they're tagging them now down there in South Sound. And they have some really interesting studies where they've located their migrating paths, and they...
All the years I fished South Sound, there's only one place where you can always catch one.
Mm-hmm.
Southward,
Mm-hmm.
on the point.
Yeah.
You'll always catch one or two.
Yeah. There's a great spot that you know, is in Bremerton, of all places, like in front of all these apartment buildings, where there's always a fish behind that rock. Like, you know, if you want to catch a cutthroat, you go down there, you walk down to these apartments, you cast behind that rock, and there's going to be a fish there. I don't know. He's always there. But yeah, they are on the move, and you know, you got to locate them, and that's why I really think the boat is really a great tool to have. And it doesn't have to be a big boat. If you've got good weather, you can get out and zip around and explore some of these shorelines. The one unexplored shoreline that I would really like to spend more time on is the inside of Coho Island. It's just such a far run from Langley. Like, to get all the way up in there where I think the fishing is good from Langley, that's like a 45-minute, an hour run. It's a long way. Just to even get to Coho Island, it doesn't look far, but you're running for 20 minutes outright just to get across.
Then you're fighting that boat launch again.
You're fighting the boat launch, and you're fighting that summertime north wind that picks up, and you've got to come back across in that north wind.
Colin, you mentioned fishing off of Langley.
Yeah.
Where?
Where specifically?
Yeah, the marina or out near the hotel?
No, specifically I would say that anywhere along that shoreline from anywhere south of the marina, along that shoreline that's rocky or has any current or anything like that, there's no specific hole for them, you know? Like we literally just like motor along and look for a fish that jumps.
So from the marina out to, is that Sandy Point?
Yeah.
From there out to Sandy Point,
You can
or
catch 'em right at
around
Sandy
Sandy Point?
You can catch them at Sandy Point. I've caught them inside the Langley Harbor where all that woody debris is, you know, as you're going out and you're getting past the boats, there's that nice shoreline before the houses there, all that woody debris in there, that'll hold cutthroat sometimes. It doesn't move a lot of water, but that's not to say they're not going to be in there foraging, you know.
That's pretty much a boat show, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is, unless you want to hike down that beach, it's, you know, you can hike down it.
I've hiked it, but there's not much rocks in there and not much current, you know.
Yeah,
Where you can actually hike out or walk
yeah,
out.
it's, you know, like that Sandy Point area with that actual point, that's the only area in there that really moves a lot of water.
What about the beach between Langley looking over to Hat Island?
Looking over to Hat Island.
Well, from the top of Sandy Point,
Yeah, well,
you
from
got
the
that
top,
stretch going down to the ferry.
from the top of Sandy Point, you've got a big long shoreline that goes all the way down to, you know, essentially the Muckletee Ferry.
Right.
You know, the Clinton Ferry.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the shoreline that I'm talking about.
Okay.
That, you know, that whole shoreline around there, especially if you get to the southern end of it, there's a nice beach there that's all rocky. And that used to have great cutthroat fishing when there was chum fries around, you know.
What weight are you using? 7?
I use 5 and 6 weights for cutthroat, and floating line and intermediate lines. I love airflow. They're my favorite fly lines. I used to like Rio, but they switched their core to something that's just so frustrating that I threw all my fly lines away. No matter how much you stretch them, they curl up on you, and it gets maddening, you know. So airflow, the Beach Pro lines, they're just awesome. They're clear, camo, intermediate sink. They come in different sink weights, but airflow's excellent. And I always carry a full sink line on the boat, or at least 2 of them, because half the time in the summer, it's sunny out, and cutthroat are, they're small fish, and they don't want to be picked off by something, so they're going to be in that deeper water column. For example, the last trip that I did, the day before that, Gina and a friend and I, we went out and we fished all day, and we fished all these great Hood Canal haunts, and we could not find. We stuck 4 fish that morning. We couldn't find them. We were just like, where are they? And so I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with the clients tomorrow. And so we went out and I said, hey, we're going to try some different stuff, because the water temperature on my depth finder is 68 degrees, which is 10 degrees plus warmer than normal. So I was just like, they're going to be in deep water, and that whole side that I was fishing, it's more rocky, not as much gradient. And so we went over to this other shoreline where it's rocks and it drops to 60 feet. And we didn't see any fish there, but we cast that full sink line out, first cast, boom, the fish came out of the green water and ate the fly. And I was like, we found them. And we just drifted along in this deep 60-foot, we were 80-foot casts from the beach, drifting along the shoreline, and they were all in there. It's like, I've never fished for them in water like that. That's like frog water. There was no current. Nothing, but they were getting out of that warm water and getting in that deeper, shadow stuff too. It was all shaded in shadow. This is weird weather. Cutthroat aren't used to this in June. It's usually rainy here in June.
Is there any bass in there?
I don't know, but if there was, I would have called Ken. Got a new bass fishery for you, Ken.
So up
You're
by,
telling me to click? Gina keeps telling me to
Wrap
click.
it up.
Oh, I'm wrapping it up. Okay.
I wanted to ask about up by the seaplane base where they opened up the.
Yeah, Walla Bay.
No,
Is that what you're talking about?
just past the seaplane base by, there was that little estuary, it was all blocked off.
Uh-huh.
And then they opened it up,
Yeah.
and they were thinking it was gonna become a great fishery.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that.
Hey, all these little estuaries like Race Lagoon and Harrington Lagoon and Grasser's Lagoon, all those estuaries, they fish so good when we have chum fry. When there are pink and chum fry in abundance in the marine waters, that's where they go to spend their little juvenile lives. They go into these little, and Mark, you and I fished one of those estuaries. Yeah, we didn't find anything that day, but there were, that was a time when there were a lot of chum and pink fry in the water. And what they'll do is they'll go into these little estuaries because it's protected, there's no current in there, and then every day when a big tide swing, they can't swim against it. When they get sucked right out into that vacuum, and there's predatory fish literally waiting for them there. And if those are all walk and wade spots, that swing. Because the flow is coming out and you quarter down and it's tight quarters. It's very intimate fishing too. I really love that about those lagoons because you're literally fishing a river. And sometimes those fish will be in knee-deep water and they'll be crushing bait all around you, and it's really exciting fishing. And you'll find bull trout at the head of it, and you'll find cutthroat down below because they don't want to get eaten by the bull trout. So you'll find both species in the spring, sometimes in late spring.
Yeah, one right between Pontiac Point and.
Yeah.
They opened that up, and
Yeah.
the water really moves through.
Yeah,
It did for a while, I don't know, but it's all filled up in there now.
Yeah. I love Pontiac Point. That's a really good spot. Fishing Pontiac Point from a boat, that big bowl, and it comes out to that point, that's great bull trout water in there. It's deeper, it's fast water, and those bull trout really like that stuff.
Colin, thank you
Yeah,
so much.
that's it.
Thank you.